In studio with us, the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tindell. How you doing this morning, Commissioner?
Doing wonderful. It's a beautiful day in Mississippi and a great day for our second annual Public Safety Summit.
I know, and we've got the Attorney General will be joining us in just a moment. A little bit of a kind of catch-as-catch-can schedule for you guys today because the summit actually started this morning, right?
It started this morning. We actually had an event last night with some of the sponsors. You got to thank them for what they contribute, because this is an event that we put on for first responders from across the state, and it's at no charge to them or their agencies. They can come here and get some great training and some great networking. And so we've been real busy. We started last night, and we kicked it off this morning, and the general addressed the group, and I got to follow up, and they've already got their first speaker talking about integrity in policing and ways to police with character. So I think it's a great start and to the second annual summit, and so proud to be partnering with the Attorney General, Lynn Fitch, and her team on bringing this to the public safety officials across the state.
Well, and the thing is, the Attorney General, obviously, I think we've proven one thing here today, Will. The Attorney General, much busier than the Commissioner from the Department of Public Safety, because it took her a minute to get here. Attorney General Lynn Fitch joins us. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having us. We really appreciate it. It's an exciting time to talk about the summit and what's going on and how important that is for us all to be together. And I appreciate the Commissioner and his team. And not only is he a great friend, he's a great leader, a great visionary, and he's done tremendous work. And it's just such an incredible opportunity for us to work together. The partnership has just been over the top, the amount of work we're able to do together. And having this summit, it just truly shows bringing everybody together, the friendships, the relationships, the opportunity for our law enforcement, prosecutors, first responders to all learn, have great speakers, and take good takeaways as they go back into their community.
You know, I want to pull something out of what you just said. The teamwork, the partnership, the camaraderie, that has to exist across the spectrum of law enforcement, or things just don't work as well as they could. Is that a fair statement, you think?
Oh, absolutely. We've certainly seen it as we've worked together and seen the magnitude of the work that we've been able to achieve with the different teams, broadening the circle of influence on our operations together as we brought in our partnerships, we brought in our other local partners in law enforcement, our federal partners. It's been amazing.
It really has. And to the General's credit, this is the first time the Department of Public Safety and the Attorney General's office, probably in decades, has worked together with the relationships that we have with Joint Task Force, whether it's Operation Unified or the truckers and trafficking initiatives. The General has been on the forefront of a lot of things and has reached out to us and said, we want to partner with y'all. I think it's important that the AG's office and the Department of Public Safety are working together. And so kudos to her leadership and inviting folks to the table, because all too often it becomes territorial. And with her leadership, it's not that way. It's how can we make Mississippi safer? Let's work together and have a better, safer Mississippi across the board. And we can do that if we're working together. And that's really the Public Safety Summit. That's what it's about. It's about bringing police chiefs. It's about bringing sheriffs. It's about bringing prosecutors from across the state and state law enforcement, and finding ways that we can work together, and at the same time also hearing from some great speakers about leadership and ways to improve their respective organizations.
Well, to me, it serves two purposes. Number one, it helps build that camaraderie and make those connections where, this is going to sound strange, but sometimes something could be happening down on the coast, but there's somebody up near the Tennessee line that might have the answer to what you're dealing with. If you have a relationship with those people, you can communicate back and forth and exchange that information and move forward. The other thing it does is gets everybody on the same page. Everybody gets there. Everybody listens to the speakers. Everybody learns the same things the same way. And it kind of makes it a bit more unified, I would think.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It does. It, as the commissioner said, it brings everybody together. And to your point, Dave, it does. Everybody is on the same page. And having your colleagues, your friends, if there's an issue that's happening that's very similar to yours, you can pick up the phone, call, and it moves much more efficiently, quicker to have that knowledge base. I mean, we all know that knowledge is very powerful, but it's powerful when you share it. And so we see this summit together as an opportunity to do that. And, you know, the other thing that it does, you know, certainly crime is on everybody's mind, not only in our state, all of our communities, but across our country. And I think for our people across the state to see that we are coming together, that we are a united front in law enforcement is significant. So this is a tremendous time to be together.
You mentioned that it was the second annual. Last year had the very first one, which I loved it when it first came up. It was one of those things, one of those ideas that when I first heard of it, I was like, why had no one done this before? Why hadn't we thought of this before? It's fantastic. But what kind of feedback did you get last year from the summit?
Well, I think it's tremendous, and that's why we're having the second annual, and hopefully it'll go on from there. And it's, you know, it was one of the things I know the General encountered and I encountered. We go out throughout the year and we go to the Police Chiefs Association meeting, the Sheriff's Association meeting, the Coroners Association meeting, the Prosecutors Association meeting, but there was never an event that brought all of public safety together. And had a joint meeting. And so there was such a need, and we looked at other states, and they were doing it, and it made sense for us to do it. And it's not even just law enforcement. You know, we have coroners there this time. We have firefighters there, and all of these things intersect. I mean, a lot of times when there's a wreck on the side of the road or there's an incident, the first responders, the firefighters, and the law enforcement will be there. And so establishing these relationships, not just within their sector, but within the entire public safety community is so important. And so I think that's why it was such a big success, and we've got a great response. And I'm sure the General got calls like I did, like, please do it again. Please do it again.
We did. The feedback was incredible. And, you know, as the commissioner said, everyone's involved and everybody has a role to play. And so I think having everybody in the same room, talking about the same issues that are important for all of us, again, having best practices to share and to trade that information is just so valuable. And every one of those different people have a tremendous role, and they are significant as we continue to change how we do things and how we do it for the better and the best safety that we can all possibly provide.
Well, it's like the old expression goes, there is no standing still. You're either moving forward or you're falling behind. And this is a great opportunity to move forward and keep moving forward with law enforcement practices and things like that. And it's not just, you know, sometimes you hear about some of these things and it's just, you know, Joe that lives around the corner is going to get up and talk for a minute. Well, I talked to Joe this morning when I was getting my coffee. You've got people from all over the country in here. You've got people from everywhere bringing a lot of expertise and a lot of information and valuable insights into things that everybody's going to get to hear through Wednesday.
Amazing speakers, nationally renowned speakers that are here, incredible panelists. It's going to be a great takeaway for all the participants. And the other thing that we talked about early on is making this free to attend. And so, again, many times, particularly in your smaller departments, they don't have the funding available to attend this type of high caliber quality training. And so that was part of our goal for the commissioner and for me and our teams is let's make it where it's free, and then we will have everybody who can possibly attend.
Well, you're bringing in law enforcement from all over the state, Commissioner. I would assume a big chunk of the expense of this is the coffee budget.
It's a big, but look, we've got some great sponsors. You know, one thing that I'm extremely proud of in Mississippi, and this is going back to 2020 when I got in office and the General got in office, we were seeing complaints nationwide against law enforcement and protests, and we had them here in Mississippi, but you didn't see any of the violence and the protests and the types of destruction that you saw in other communities. And I think it's because Mississippi supports its law enforcement, and we are a state that backs the blue. And so whenever there is an opportunity for sponsors to step up and help with an event like this, our corporate partners stand up and say, yes, we want to be involved. What can we do to help? And they know the importance of public safety for making Mississippi an attractive place to live. when you're trying to recruit business here, when you're trying to recruit people to live here. Public safety is an important factor and something that folks look at. And recently, U.S. News and World Reports came out with its state's ranking. Mississippi was number 17 in the nation when it came to public safety.
So they miscounted by 16. But aside from that, they got it right. We've got in studio with us Attorney General Lynn Fitch and the Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tindell, talking about the Law Enforcement Summit going on through Wednesday. And when we come back, if you guys can stick around, I know you have nothing going on today, I realize that, but if you can stick around, we'll get a little more into it. And specifically talk about some of the folks that you've got speaking. You've got some really, really good. I want to go listen to them. I mean, you got some good speakers here. We'll talk about that when we come back live in the Element Wealth Studios on Middays. Keep it here. Welcome back, SuperTalk Mississippi, live in the Element Wealth Studios. Dave Hughes here in studio with us, the Attorney General Lynn Fitch and the Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tindell. We're talking about the Law Enforcement Summit. Started this morning, bright and early, 9 o'clock. As a matter of fact, I think you two both spoke to the attendees this morning, right?
We did. We kicked it off. It was exciting to see so many people there, the synergy. Again, to think about all these people in law enforcement, the different professions, the first responders, the prosecutors, all being in the room together. Again, what a moment. And we're excited about the 3 days ahead of us.
You know, and Commissioner, let me ask you this one, because over there speaking right now is a guy named Dave Anderson. And I think the title of his talk, the text, the message of his talk is probably one of the most important things in law enforcement.
I agree. He's an impressive man, a former veteran, West Point graduate, Bronze Star Award winner. But has also worked in corporate America and has taken the leadership lessons that he learned in our military and applied them in corporate America. Now, because of his relationships with colleagues that have gone into law enforcement, felt that this was an important message to send. And it's becoming officers and agencies of character in law enforcement. And so, you know, he's really talking about leadership and what it takes to be a good leader and getting agencies on the right path with character and integrity. And so sometimes, and I think Nick Saban said it best, that if you want to make people happy, go sell ice cream. Don't try to be a leader. And when you're leading an agency, law enforcement or otherwise, you got to make tough decisions. And character and integrity matter. And you got to hold certain standards up. And so, you know, creating that culture, I think, is important. And again, another example of a great speaker that our teams were able to get on tap to come in and offer, you know, a unique insight into ways that we can improve our agencies.
Well, you've got Department of Homeland Security represented amongst the speakers. You've got the Marshal Service represented amongst the speakers. You got everybody. It's impressive. It really is.
Well, and everybody wanted to be a part, so it was easy to ask people to come and be a part of this joint venture. And you're right, we have people from Secret Service, from the FBI, from, like you said, the Marshals, Homeland Security. Again, everybody has an incredible role to play, and so having everyone there to talk about what everybody should be doing, how we can do it better, how it can be more efficient, what are the best practices. It will be able to have a lot of great takeaways in the next few days.
Well, let me ask you this, since I've got the think tank assembled here. What do you think the biggest challenge facing law enforcement in Mississippi is right now? Really should have prepped them for this question. You realize that I'm stalling for a second here to give you a moment to think, because I did blindside them with this one.
Well, and it's, you know, there's a couple of things. One, from my perspective, and I don't. The general might have some additional thoughts. I think there's two things that really come to mind. One is salaries for our law enforcement and first responders. If you want to get quality individuals to take on this career path with the level of professionalism that is expected today and integrity that's expected, as well as the risk that is involved with the job, you need to offer a salary that is commensurate with those two things. And getting law enforcement and first responder salaries up to a level where they don't have to work 2 or 3 jobs just to make ends meet, I think is critically important, especially as you're talking about recruiting young individuals into this profession, I hear a lot of talk from not sheriffs, but mayors and sheriffs and police chiefs about different agencies taking their officers. And my point is, we need to get to a point where we're all offering competitive enough salaries. Taking officers from other agencies isn't the issue. It's being able to recruit younger individuals into this profession. And if we're recruiting successfully by offering entry-level salaries that are commensurate, again, with the professionalism and the risks that are associated with the job, this won't be an issue. And then number two, making sure through, I think, our border law enforcement officer standards and training that we're creating a culture in law enforcement where that professionalism level stays at where it needs to be, and it needs to be beyond reproach. And there's a lot of trust that's given to law enforcement officers, and we need to make sure that those standards and professionalism levels are being upheld.
Well, and I think that speaks to something, and it's almost a correction. I don't mean to, but you don't give trust; it's earned.
That's right.
And that's the way you do it right there. I'm sorry, Attorney General. I just had to say that.
You're exactly right, and completely agree with the Commissioner. We want to recruit these individuals. Again, they are at high risk. Their families are at risk when they go into this profession. We certainly need to be paying them the accurate salary, and then we want to retain them. Again, the knowledge that they learn over time, the opportunity to mentor to younger people, men and women coming into the profession as well. We have to look at that as, a holistic approach. But certainly we've got to pay these individuals. We've got to pay these men and women to give of themselves. I mean, they are public servants. You don't enter into any of these jobs unless you have a heart to do this. Your heart is to protect, to serve, to provide safety. And so we need to help them along those lines. Definitely we would be looking to always increase that for them. And we should never be losing other officers to different agencies just because we're unfortunately not able to pay that amount. I agree with the Commissioner on all that. What we're trying to do together is to, again, provide more training for them. People get better, they grow, their personal development enhances as we provide training. So this is, again, key what we're doing right now with the summit, but we have to continue to do that throughout the course of the year and be ready. And as we do that, and we have great standards, we are absolutely looking for the top of the top. Every law enforcement officer should be meeting the highest standards. They are the champions. They are the role models. So we should have true accountability on them, but we do that by helping them be prepared to achieve the highest standards available.
Well, yeah, I think I can boil all that down to this. You get what you pay for. I'm sorry, if you're willing to pay for like a Prius and you want to enter the Indy 500, you're going to have a bad weekend. You have to pay for what you want to have. It's just that's basic economics. That's the most basic.
Absolutely. And to the training aspect, I mean, this year was legislation was passed with House Bill 691 that required all law enforcement, not just the municipal police, which it was in the past, to get continuing annual education and continual training. And so law enforcement officers have been going through basic training and then coming to state agencies or sheriff's department and not getting that continuing mandatory education every year. Some departments were doing it, some might not be. So now all your state law enforcement with that bill has to get continuing education, and this summit is a part of that. You can send your officers to the summit next year and they will be able to get credit for that continuing education. And so this will make a better law enforcement. It'll make them better. Again, the salaries and the training and the standards are all very important. But if you're wanting the best of the best, you got to pay that salary that's commensurate with what they're doing.
I'm sorry, if two jobs are open, one of them involves stacking boxes in a warehouse and the other one involves getting shot at and breaking up fights, and they pay roughly the same, which one are you taking?
Yeah, especially in today's world.
Absolutely. And one of the things that certainly the Commissioner and I talk about and we're implementing it across our agencies, there is the quality of life. So we're very cognizant about all of our law enforcement officers and men and women who are out there on our behalf, on behalf of representation of the state. There is the quality of life. There are their families that are involved. It is an emotional, a mental opportunity to support them because, again, you can't unsee the things that they see. And so, again, that's part of our responsibility as well, is to provide them whatever uplifting, again, that they might need, that their families might need, because, again, it's a different situation, and you are in this business because you are there for others.
And there has to be a point where they can turn it off and go and spend time with their family. One of the cultures in law enforcement and first responders has been, working overtime, and which I think is great to have the opportunity to do that. But if somebody's working 80 hours a week, there's only so long they continue to do that and then be at their best in their regular shift. I have a bad day. I might yell at somebody, close the door, and go on about my life. If these law enforcement officers have a bad day and yell at somebody, it's on Facebook, it's on social media, and they're getting just, put in a bad light. And, maybe they just had a bad day. We need to make sure that when they're out there, they're at their best, that they're getting rest, that they've spent time with their family, that they're in a good place, and they're going to be better law enforcement officers. So we've got to create that culture where mental health, physical health, all those things are also evaluated during the course of the profession. And that's some of the topics that we'll discuss at the Public Safety Summit. How do you create a better environment for your officers? What role does mental health and those things take, in the workplace for law enforcement? And so I think that another great attribute of this summit is bringing those conversations to the forefront.
Well, and let me ask you, because I know you're busy, could you stick around for the last little short segment?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. We're holding the Attorney General and the Commissioner captive, but only until the top of the hour, and then we will release them back into the wild. We are talking about the Law Enforcement Summit going on this week, and we will continue to do exactly that next on Middays, live in the Element Wealth Studios. Sitting here looking at the C Spire text line, and the thought that comes to mind is, I'll deal with you later. Don't start with me. Welcome back live in the Element Wealth Studios here on Middays. We have the Attorney General, Lynn Fitch, and the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety, Sean Tindell, with us. The Law Enforcement Summit going on this week. But last week we had an event as well. It was Law Enforcement Officers Week, but we were talking off the air about one very important aspect of that, and that was remembering the ones that gave everything they had to try to keep people safe in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, and it was an emotional week. The general, along with the police chiefs and sheriff, host a fallen officer memorial outside the Supreme Court building, where all of the fallen officers in Mississippi's history are placed on the wall there. Of course, most of your agencies across the state have their own fallen officer memorials. We had DPSs, and it's important to remember, and it's important to celebrate their lives and give the families an opportunity to come and be a part of that. And very, very emotional week.
It was very emotional, certainly to see the families there, and again, to keep their loved ones' memories alive. They are our heroes, and we should always talk about their lives, their legacy. And to the wall, as the Commissioner was talking about, unfortunately, we added 9 new names this year, and as we sat there and watched the different honor guards come through, the mounted patrol, the motorcycle units, it was the K9, and watch those officers come by and salute the wall. An emotional moment, but one that we should always keep their memories alive. And again, just to talk to the families, they all the ceremonies presenting, roses up to their loved ones at the wall, at DPS. It just means so very much. And we need to continue to talk about it, because these people, these law enforcement officers, these men and women gave the ultimate sacrifice. And along with it came their families, who at any given moment, told their loved ones goodbye, kissed them, and as we were talking about earlier, and they were gone in a flash. So it is on us to always be there for these families and support them any possible way we can.
And I think it's also a great reminder of why law enforcement officers should get respect and honor, and cut them a little slack. We've been talking about this, Commissioner. Sometimes you have a bad day. It doesn't mean you're a bad person.
That's right.
Period.
And there's a lot of risk associated with this job. I mean, the reality is, I don't know that you could find any other profession domestically in this country where you have these professionals die in the line of duty like they do in law enforcement. It's one in which needs to be in individuals' minds. And we were talking earlier about the new mandatory driver's education programs coming to our school, and there's going to be a role for law enforcement to come in and talk to students about how they interact with law enforcement, because all too often, I had a grandfather that was a sheriff's deputy. I know the general's uncle was a sheriff. Your father was a highway patrolman and police chief. We probably have a different education at home about interactions with law enforcement because of our family members that have been in those roles. But most young people today don't have that influence. And so we're going to go into the schools and we're going to talk about the importance of, how you interact with law enforcement. Don't argue your case on the side of the road. There's a, courtroom for that. Don't be reaching in the glove box with the lights off in your car at night. The officer doesn't know what you're reaching for. And so I think it's important that we have those conversations with young people to let them know the officer's there to make sure you're safe. He's on your side. He wants you to go home safe and try to have that mutual respect. If we have respect with each other, it goes a long ways and everybody will go home safe.
No, exactly. And the point you just made, again, the advice my dad gave me, if you get pulled over, go ahead and roll your window down, put your hands on 10 and 2 on the wheel, leave them there until he asks you to give him something. If you want to, go ahead, get your license out and have it in your hand while you're holding it up there. Make it as easy as possible for them to feel comfortable and safe when they walk up. You do that, you're going to have a good experience.
That's right. That's right.
Well, and to both your points, I mean, certainly the respect is so important, and we need to continue to honor that and be respectful of our law enforcement. And I think that's an amazing program that's going to be put in the schools that's going to help on so many levels. Certainly, we were talking earlier about the high fatality rate for our teens in our state. So requiring them to have driver's education hopefully is going to change that dynamic so that our law enforcement officers are not investigating that many of those different accidents and fatalities. So, but the respect is key, and we should always do that. We're very good in the state of Mississippi, but we need to continue to be always respectful and thankful for our law enforcement.
Well, I got to tell you, I really love the summit. Second year of it going on this week. Already planning for next year?
Absolutely.
Okay. I figured as much. This smells like a success to me, so, you would want to keep it going. I would like to close with something I haven't mentioned in a while. Dave's rule of defensive driving, because I want to get an expert opinion on this from you two. My one rule of defensive driving: don't be stupid. That's if you pull that one off, 90% of the problems go away, right?
Well, that's exactly right, and that would include texting and driving would fall in the stupid category.
That's almost double stupid.
Pay attention.
Attorney General, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Commissioner,
Thank you.
We've got news from Fox and SuperTalk Mississippi News next.